And welcome to a special edition of At Issue. This is a town hall on the impact of heroin in central Illinois. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported in 2014 that there were 10,574 cases of overdoses, lethal overdoses in America. More than 700 of those were in the state of Illinois, and way too many were in central Illinois. We have a panel of experts to discuss the issue and a live audience who, some of whom will share their stories with us as the next hour progresses. So welcome to this special edition of At Issue. My name is H. Wayne Wilson. Rather than introducing panelists as we normally do with That Issue, we're going to get right into the conversation. The first thing I want to do is turn to Dr. Leiser. Dr. Bob Leiser, what is the definition of addiction?
Thanks, H. Addiction is basically a condition where a person uses a substance, ingests it, or participates in an activity that is very pleasurable, but over time becomes more compulsive, and that compulsivity starts to become more detrimental, affecting their daily activities of their life, including their health, including their relationships, and including work.
We've heard the term gateway drugs. Are there gateway drugs, or is it just all kinds of ways that we get involved with?
There's many different ways to become addicted with medications these days.
We're going to talk about heroin on the program. And is there a definition of heroin? Is it an opiate, or is it an opiate? Mm-hmm. But there are many other opiates.
Correct.
So what is it about heroin and other opioids that are so addictive? Is there some way of describing that?
Basically, heroin is a very addictive substance. Heroin is made from morphine, which is made from an opioid seed. And the thing about heroin is that when it's injected, it very quickly goes to the brain and starts working. And over time, this euphoria that people get, it becomes more compulsive to use the drug.
I think it's important to note here, too, that opiates work on the brain differently than a lot of other drugs, and that the brain really likes it. I think the body tries to fight off other drugs, cocaine, things like that. The body knows it doesn't belong there. But because our body naturally produces opiates, I think that's why people tend to become addicted quicker and like it even more.
Let me turn to some real-life experiences. Joni Shaver is here. Joni, would you please share with us, Joni lost her son, and this was on April the 30th of this year. Can you tell me what happened and what the impact on your family has been?
Oh, wow. I could tell over the years that he was getting angrier and angrier. You could tell when he was on the drugs and when he was not on the drugs by his behavior. It got to the point where he was screaming and yelling horrible things, and I wouldn't allow it and kicked him out. He had been kicked out of the house 3 times by the time, but yeah, I came home after a wonderful vacation with him, and then he bought $600 worth of drugs on checks that were no good, and had himself a party in our house, I guess. My husband came up and was crying and yelling Seth's name, and I went down, and there he was in his bed, gone.
He was already dead at that point?
He was already dead.
Now, thank you for sharing, and we'll be back and talk more about the impact that it's had on your family since that time.
All right.
But what I want to talk about now is there is a substance called Narcan, and it's been recently approved. The U.S. Attorney for Central District of Illinois is here, Jim Lewis. Jim, can you tell us about Narcan in terms of it's now easier to access it? And Sheriff, if you want to jump in here too, because your deputies are using Narcan as well.
We've gotten smarter, and we realize that here's a drug that will interfere with the receptors and will just essentially clear the receptors at least for a while, so that you can bring people back from death or the verge of death or whatever. And considering the risks and the dangers that go with heroin, the fact that Narcan can do this means that we have to get it out in the hands of first responders, officers, even families. And that's a big issue, is to keep pushing Narcan and making it available simply to keep people alive.
Your deputies use it.
All law enforcement in central Illinois is carrying it and they're trained to use it, and it's been a valuable tool in saving a lot of lives.
Chief Deputy is here, Joe Needham. What are the deputies telling you? Have they had experience of using Narcan out in the field?
Yes, quite a few times they've used it, and they've been successful in reviving people.
This is just one more step that you have to use in fighting this use of opioids, but you still have the law to adhere to. You may administer Narcan, but after the Narcan is administered, are you looking for people who provided it?
We're conducting investigations. There's a heroin task force that's in place, and all these overdoses are being investigated by the various agencies in the task force. And I think it's important to know that, you know, there's no leniency on this. If we know that you're using or in possession, then you're going to be arrested. And so we want to try to get the information and find out. We want to stop the influx of the heroin to the Peoria community.
You have to follow the law and arrest.
Exactly.
But there's a change in the process. When you turn that information over to the state's attorney, there's a new step that's involved.
There are. They have some things they can do at the state's attorney's office in Peoria County, and at the federal level too. There are some options they have once your arrest has been made.
Jerry Brady is here. He's the Peoria County State's Attorney. What are the options that are available to you once someone has been arrested and charged?
I think first of all, what we do, and we meet on a weekly basis with the U.S. Attorney's Office to determine whether or not the individual that's been arrested, whether or not they fall within a level of being a high-level dealer or a middle-range user dealer or the user of the drug. And so we try to make a determination because, as we all know, some of the penalties can be much stronger in federal court. So if we're dealing with a dealer, we're more likely to look at federal prosecution. On the other hand, from the standpoint of the state and the federal system has a PADI court. Peoria County has a drug court. And so that there is the availability of an individual to receive treatment, because I think it's clearly, as we all have learned, that we're not going to arrest our way out of the heroin and the heroin use that has obviously increased. Some call it an epidemic. And so what we can do is, after a person's been arrested, we can determine whether or not treatment is necessary. And the treatment with Peoria County's drug court requires either weekly or every couple of weeks appearance, and you appear before the judge. And then there are sanctions, and by that I don't mean jail necessarily. There's a monitoring of how they're progressing with their treatment.
And similar on the federal level?
The federal drug court is really actually a very inspiring place. It's we're very proud of it. The Attorney General came out and actually participated one day in it. In the course of a drug case, you're going to find some people who are at the core of the problem, and they are a law enforcement problem. But you're also going to find some people around the edges who are involved simply because they're addicted, which is a disease. They have a disease. They may have committed some minor acts to help, but they have a disease. If we take those people and divert them and put them through what we call a PADI court, which is similar to the state drug court, and they get the in treatment, they get the out treatment, they get supervision, all sorts of things happen over an extended period of time, and they get clean and they get to rethinking what they've been doing, they get some employment, all sorts of things happen, and then they graduate from PADI court and they actually stand up in front of people who've gone through the court with them, and they explain with their perhaps family with them, wives, children. I've seen this, it's very inspiring. And they explain that they have taken their life back. And it's very important. I would encourage people who are interested to go to some of the patty courts and see people who are working hard, and there are failures, but the success rate happens to be very high. The success rate of getting through this is about 85 to 90%. And that means instead of people being on the state's expense in prisons, federal prisons, whatever, they turn their lives around and they go back to very productive work.
You in the audience have an opportunity to participate by going to our website. You can email us. You can email us at issue@wtvp.org, or if you'd like to use Twitter, you can tweet at WTVPAI. WTVPAI. The U.S. Attorney mentioned disease. Is there a change in, you're a licensed clinical, Brian Denur is here from Advocate Medical Group. He's a licensed professional counselor. Has there been a change over time in how you're approaching the disease now?
Well, I think one of the real challenges is really dealing with the individual and dealing with issues of fear and shame and guilt and being able to work through that. And I think that's a big barrier for a lot of people coming into treatment or wanting to seek out that treatment, is that fear. And for a lot of people, they come from this perspective of, I'm a bad person, there's something wrong with me, and trying to really help them look at that disease concept and understand that can make a huge difference.
We have several people who are clean now, and I'd like to turn to Chad first. Chad, if you could stand up, please, and briefly tell us your story about how you got into heroin and what was the turning point in your life.
Well, I started smoking pot and drinking when I was about 15, and I just continued experimenting with that here and there through high school. And then as soon as I graduated from high school, I pretty much started doing it on a almost daily basis, about 5 or 6 days a week. And then it just progressed to trying narcotic pills like opiates. And then from there, it just was never enough, never enough. And then that eventually turned to heroin. And then whenever I first did heroin, and used a needle, it pretty much forever changed my life. Like I could never get enough. I started stealing from my parents on a daily basis. I started stealing from stores, writing bad checks out of my own name, like ruining my credit, doing anything that I could just pretty much to get high and just escape the shame and fear.
And what was the turning point that you decided it's time to get clean?
I had a lot of different moments of clarity, saying that I needed to get clean, but every time I went to treatment, it just never worked out. My heart wasn't fully in it. And then I actually got federally indicted, and I was put into the PADI program. And I believe that helped change and save and alter my life. I just graduated from it a month and a half ago, so I do have a job. So I'm working on getting my license back, working on getting my own place, and was working on building relationships back with my family.
And you stood up at Patty Court and had to speak as the U.S. Attorney said?
Yes, I did.
And what did you say?
It was very brief. I was nervous. I just thanked everyone for their support, because everyone there just wants you to succeed. They're not there to try to throw you in a prison or a jail cell. They're trying to help you actually change your life.
Let's talk. Thank you very much, Chad, and congratulations on being clean. You're
Thank you.
Clean for how long?
A little over a year.
A little over a year. Congratulations. Let's talk about, he mentioned community mayor. Mayor Jim Ardis is here. He formed a little over a year ago the Mayor's Community Coalition Against Heroin. This is a community-wide effort. He said he has to reestablish his roots in the community. Can you talk about what drove you to form this group and talk about community?
Well, in this program is really playing into part of the reason that group formed is to really get more information out to the community. Towards the end of 2015, both the city and the county sheriff's department were bringing numbers to our attention that we were seeing more and more overdoses in Peoria City and County. And in talking with the state's attorney and the U.S. attorney, we were clearly following what a lot of other communities across the country had already experienced. So the main reason that we formed this coalition in the community this year, the main reason was just to raise the awareness, get the discussion going. The stereotypical person maybe that some of us in older generation think of as a heroin addict isn't that same person that it was in the 60s and 70s. Totally different. They were getting addicted for totally different reasons. And like most of your viewers probably are thinking, this heroin thing isn't something that impacts most of us. It's probably not related to us. And they're very wrong. So our focus has been on getting information out there, getting it into the general population to talk about and help them understand not only that it is affecting all of us and their families. They may not know it. They may not be able to see it because they don't realize it. If I could, for one thing, if anybody that's watching the show wants to get a real quick primer on what this heroin epidemic is and how it happens, they can go to our website on the city and go to my webpage, and there's a link to a short documentary that the FBI and DEA did. It's titled Chasing the Dragon. Rather than explain it, I can just tell you that I haven't had anybody that's seen that didn't walk away in the back of their seat saying, oh my God, this is real, and it's happening right here in Peoria.
I have seen the video. It's about 45 minutes in length, and it is very powerful. You formed the Mayor's Coalition in Peoria, but it reaches much further than that.
It is. It's law enforcement. It's community folks like we have here that are active on the medical side, people that are just advocates for getting this information out in the Tri-County area, and it's growing. Other areas of the community actually outside of Peoria County have already gone much farther than we have in this awareness. So we're trying to work with them, learning some of what they're doing to help us as well.
Well, let's turn across the river and talk about Woodford County. Woodford County has a program. It's Woodford County CASA. If you could explain that, please.
It's Woodford County Citizens Against Substance Abuse, and we've been around now for almost 10 years, formed back primarily for alcohol abuse and focusing on high school age and junior high age based on numbers that we were getting back from our Illinois youth surveys as to how students were utilizing everything from cigarettes, alcohol, how they were attaining it. But now we know we're shifting that a bit based on some grant funding that is no longer in place. So now we can actually look more at prescription drugs as well as marijuana, and still have a focus on alcohol as well. But opioids and the heroin epidemic also fall into that category as well.
Amy DeFreitas has been involved in this process for many years now. As she mentioned, it started with alcohol, marijuana, things of that nature, but it's moved to heroin and the opioids. Mm-hmm. Share with us how you're trying to involve communities in Woodford County.
Our original grant actually gave us a framework that we needed to utilize to involve law enforcement, schools. I don't know if many people know, Woodford County actually has more than 6 school districts, but the 6 high schools that we focus on. But we also work with businesses. We have representatives. We've had representatives from Chestnut, from Illinois Addiction. Those people will come and we try to build on what we can get out into the community. Utilizing funds that can use for marketing, that we put up billboards with information from our survey that we would be getting from the Illinois Youth Survey given to 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders every 2 years.
You mentioned the program over in Bloomington, mm-hmm. which is Chestnut Health.
Right.
And Tamara is here.
Yes.
Tamara Childress is the Director of Mental Health Programs. Could you talk a little bit about the involvement you have with these kinds of efforts?
Sure. Chestnut has been around as a substance abuse provider for a very long time, and we're very community-oriented and wanting to make sure we reach out to different communities in central Illinois and abroad to make sure at the heart of it that the clients are getting the services that they need. So we are at several tables in different coalitions in different counties across central Illinois, and like I said, abroad. So we do a lot of that.
Let's talk a little bit about the program itself. Does it start with detox, and what is detox?
Detox is when a person, since they are physically addicted to the substance, a lot of times that withdrawal is painful. It is very hard for them to withdraw, especially from heroin and opioids. And so we have a medically monitored detox at our facility, which makes it a little bit more comfortable, a little bit easier for them to detox off of that substance. Our detox program is about 3 to 5 days. And then when they come to our detox facility, we try to connect them to a longer-term residential 28-day stay so they can get additional treatment from there.
Chrissy Smith is here, and she's shaking her head yes. Chrissy is with the Human Service Center in Peoria, and she is the Medication-Assisted Treatment Program Director. You were shaking your head yes. Similar situation?
Yeah, the Human Service Center has a detox program also, and it's essentially, as she described, it's an inpatient medically monitored unit. It functions a little bit like a hospital, but it's not really a hospital. There's medical staff there, and basically what they do is they use medications to help people come off of whatever substance they're in there for. It could be alcohol or opiates and lots of different things. So the idea is to try to keep them comfortable.
If the two of you could address the issue of after detox, we have to go into a longer term program, but there's a waiting list as I understand it.
Yeah. There is a waiting list. You know, ideally everybody would go straight from detox when they're ready and they're motivated and they would get into a treatment program. The Human Service Center offers a variety of different inpatient and outpatient programs, and the reality is that sometimes those programs have waiting lists. And so people will go into detox and they'll be motivated for change and unfortunately maybe be put on a list. Now there are some things that they can do in the interim while they're waiting on the list. But yeah, there's waiting lists.
What is the difficulty in having a waiting list? I mean, they've gone through detox and they want to go into the 30 or 60-day program, but if there's not a place available, what happens?
Well, I tell people when we're talking about people who are dealing with substance abuse, once they pick up that phone to even come to a detox facility, it takes a lot of strength and resilience in them to even pick up the phone to see if we have a bed. So once they get to our facility and they go through the detox program, they're really at a point where they're super motivated to continue their treatment. If we cannot get them into a facility, and even our own facility, sometimes they have to wait 2 to 4 weeks. It's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. If we cannot get them into a facility, sometimes that motivation, they're afraid. They're afraid to leave our facility. They're afraid they're going to go back out and use again. They're afraid that they're going to be around people that they'll be tempted to use. So the ideal situation is to get them straight from detox into a residential facility. The fear is, for them especially, if they don't have that opportunity, that there's a potential possibility that they may use.
Let me go back to Joni Shaver. Joni, if you could, you had Seth, your son, you lost your son on April 30th. Had he been in detox?
The waiting list was too long for him, and he ended up ending up in jail. And so he did not go to detox, but then I did get him into, he was, not that I got him into, he was court ordered to go to White Oaks, and in the meantime he came home, and I knew he couldn't do it on his own, so I asked that they put one of those bracelets on his ankles.
A monitor?
A monitor, yeah, so that he would be at home until he got into White Oaks.
Jerry Brady, is that one of the problems you run into, even with court orders? If there's no place to put them?
Yeah, and I think point that was earlier made in terms of a person that detoxes, and then if they've got criminal issues, they end up back in the court system, but they're really not in treatment. And I think that's probably where we need to look more from a legal standpoint in terms of how we prosecute. We've got to look at a way that those individuals have an opportunity while they're engaged in the criminal justice system to have the treatment necessary parallel with their the criminal offense.
There is one thing that I would suggest. There's some new federal legislation and there's some new federal money. The bill was signed within the last week. And I would suggest that this community monitor and see if there can be more treatment money, because access to treatment is a big problem, and maybe we can take some steps to solve it.
We want to remind our viewers that you can participate by going to, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the addresses, but you can tweet us, you can email us. So please participate if you have a question or a comment. And U.S. Attorney Lewis, you mentioned that there's not enough money, and the state of Illinois, according to a Roosevelt University study, the state of Illinois in 2012 was 48th in its financial commitment to fighting heroin and other opiates. So where do we turn for that move? We don't have any legislators here tonight, and we have a tight budget, but are there options that are available? Mayor, have you been looking into this and how you might find other ways to help these people?
Well, H, unfortunately, we don't need to probably have a big discussion about the state of the finances here in Illinois, so we know that's going to be a really difficult road. We are in contact with our federal representatives who are very up to speed on the issues that we're facing in our community. And really, I mean, the sad part about it is the money, it doesn't look like it's going to be coming anytime soon. So it's even more important for community discussions like this to work together to do as much as we can without the financial resources.
But there might be money from private sources, and let me turn to Fight the Fight. And Wendy McCready is here. Wendy, can you explain one of the roles that Fight the Fight? First of all, before we go any further, you lost your son to a heroin overdose.
I did.
Real briefly, would you describe when and how that happened?
He passed away on May 29th of 2015 of a heroin overdose. He had battled heroin addiction for 7 years before he passed. And after he passed, I started the group with a few friends and family members, Fight the Fight. And we had our first annual Addiction Awareness Walk this year in August. So we're going to start working on our next annual walk for 2017 in August. And our walk is to bring awareness to the community and to provide education and resources. So family members know where to turn when their loved one asks for help, and addicts themselves will know where to go. So we work with a lot of different rehab centers and sober living homes.
And resources can include funding to get them into programs because they may not have the resources to get into these kinds of treatment programs.
Right. Insurance generally will pay for the treatment program itself. If they have state insurance, of course, they're limited to where they can go. After rehab, though, it's really important for a lot of addicts to go to a sober living home and stay there and live for a while until they get stronger and have more clean time to be able to go out and be a good part of society and productive member of society and get a job and, function.
And one of those individuals who has contributed to society for the past 5 years is Bryce. Bryce, if you would stand up and tell us your story. When did it all start? And was there a turning point where you said, it's time for me to get clean?
It all started, like Chad, I was 15, started smoking and drinking at school, just experimenting, dealing with my hormones at that point. We had a lot of medication in my home, in the cabinets. My stepdad was a old Vietnam vet, so when I couldn't get any weed or get drunk with my friends, we had some Vicodin laying around. So I would take a couple pills here and there, and it didn't take too long after that. It just kind of progresses. I remember the first time I did morphine, we'd shave the sides off and we would snort it, because we knew you'd get higher off that, and the higher you get, the higher you want to get. So it didn't take very long. I eventually ended up in heroin, needles needles will change your life. There's not a better feeling than the way that heroin feels when you're injecting it.
Let me ask you a question. You went to prison.
Yep.
Prison didn't turn you around.
No.
In fact, it may have made it worse.
Well, it made me feel like I was grown, so maybe I had some confidence that I didn't necessarily need. I don't stick my kid in the corner without explaining to him what he did wrong. There wasn't enough treatment for me when I went to prison. Everybody there, we all had substance abuse problems. Most of us, our crimes were involved with substance abuse in some way. So when I came home, nothing had changed. I was 21 at this point, so I just started drinking instead till I got off parole.
But there was an event in your life that turned you around.
You can only do so many terrible things in your life where you realize that there's a trend here. So I knew how terrible, the things that I was doing to myself was. And for me, luckily, and this doesn't happen to everybody, but the birth of my son, I didn't want to keep that going. So I used the things that I learned in the previous 10 years of trouble, rehab, and everything, kind of put it all together at that point and got clean.
And you've been clean for?
2,000 days tomorrow.
2,000 days tomorrow. About 5 years.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
He mentioned that there wasn't a program in prison that really was very effective in helping him. You run a large jail. You have told me in the past that way too many of those people have drug problems or mental health problems or a combination of the two, yet you don't really have the resources to handle that appropriately.
We don't. We have to rely on the community, the Human Service Center, and all the other people that are here, and the doctors and the physicians. And that's why the Mayor's Coalition and getting the word out is so important, because we have to rely on other people in the community to get these people the type of treatment and specialized interest for them that they can use to get them straight.
Let me share an email that we received from Sharon. Sharon Harkless sent this in. I lost my son to this epidemic, and she does call it an epidemic, as you referred to, Jerry Brady. I lost my son to this epidemic on August 1st. We have formed Cody's Crusaders Foundation. We are wanting to get more education on this out there and help addicts get into recovery. We provide funding to help them, so there's one of the answers for you, Mayor. We want to get more facilities in this area. The problem is the long waiting list to get into recovery. We are new at this, but want it to be known that we are out there to help and want to do anything we can to get the word out. In that long waiting list that we were talking about, how many people do you have? And they come from statewide, right?
Yes, people that come to our detox facility come from all over the state of Illinois. Right now we have a 14-bed detox facility. It's a detox crisis stabilization unit as well, just like HSC. It's very, very similar. We've visited your facility before as well. And the residential rehab facilities, there are 16 beds, male beds and female beds in that facility as well.
And we invite you to participate by either email or by tweeting. The addresses are on the bottom of the screen. And you mentioned HSC, that is Human Service Center, and you have a similar program, a waiting list.
Well, it depends on the program, and it fluctuates all the time. A lot of our programs do have waiting lists. Detox generally doesn't have a waiting list. Most of the time, there's a bed available. But the inpatient programs and some of the outpatient programs and the medication-assisted treatment programs do. We have a private practice model program called True North Solutions. Generally, they don't have much of a wait. People can generally call them and get in.
This question will relate to what we've just been talking about. This comes from Michelle Tribe. What can the community do to increase the size of the facility capacity so that the substance abusers looking for help do not have to be on that waiting list? Mayor, you talked about money. What are the prospects at Human Service Center and or Chestnut?
You know, I'm not the expert when it comes to money, H. That's our CEO.
Let me introduce Mike Kennedy. Mike is here.
You're welcome.
He is the CEO at Human Service Center. Mike, State funding is part of your funding,
Yes.
but many other sources, and I'm assuming the budget is really tight right now.
Unfortunately, I believe it will shrink. Somebody made a comment earlier that we can't arrest our way out of this problem. And though that's our business, I'm not sure we can treat our way out of this problem either. I'm not convinced that there will ever be sufficient resources to get what a lot of people call treatment on demand. And if you ask some of the folks here who've been in recovery, when they're ready to go to work on recovery, they want it now. And it's like a window of opportunity. And one of the things that was commented on earlier was this federal legislation, and there's going to be dollars available. What we've read about it is states have to apply for it. And this is going to be like in February is the cutoff date. What's important about this show and about the initiative that's going on right now is we need to put a community plan together that if we're going to go after that money, like every other community is going to, we need to have a plan about what we want to do with it. Some of it can be things that traditionally we've done already, but some of it's going to be creative things that people go, I never thought of doing that before.
And awareness is what might help accomplish that. Let me introduce you to Tori. Tori has been clean for 18 months. Tori, congratulations on being clean for 18 months.
Thank you, H.
You went through detox.
I did.
Did you have to wait to go into the treatment program?
I did. I waited for about 2 to 2.5 months to get into inpatient treatment.
And how difficult was that for you?
It was a very difficult time. A lot of desperation, a lot of feeling like I wanted the help that I knew I needed but couldn't get it. So it was a very trying time, and I feel very lucky to have been able to make it through that.
Was there someone or some professional to whom you turned to help during that period of time?
I did have some people that I know in recovery that were very supportive of me, and there were also 12-step groups and things of that nature that that I probably wouldn't be alive today without. And also the detox facility allowed me to go back multiple times within that time period.
If you'll stay standing, and we'll have Chad join in the conversation here. And the reason I'm asking both of you to participate is you are roommates.
We are.
And how often and how do you support each other in making sure that clean stays clean?
We just try to hold each other accountable by going to the 12-step meetings. We try to make sure that we're okay, like at least on a daily basis if we can. We always try to check in with one another just to try to see if everything's going okay in our lives, or make sure that if anything has us down, to make sure that we know that we have an outlet, someone we can talk to or vent to.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I just want to mention that a big part of the reason that I'm clean today is because of the opportunity that I have to live with people in recovery. Peoria and Central Illinois in general is very lacking in halfway houses or after treatment recovery homes. These are actually, they could be private businesses, I believe. I don't know what the zoning laws and stuff like that are. But if we had those, I think it would boost success rates for recovery, and also maybe lower the rates of people who go to treatment multiple times because of the long-term support and the help reintegrating back into society.
Chrissy, are there limitations as to who can run a program like that to help out these gentlemen, Tori and Chad?
You know, I don't know the rules around that. I know that Peoria area doesn't have a lot of those homes, like he said. There are some, and the people that are able to either afford to get into those or are on a list and do get into those really do have success, like he said. You know, we're talking a lot about treatment here, but recovery and community recovery is important too. The 12-step communities and living with people who support your recovery and having family that's supportive and things like that. I mean, those things play a huge role.
Mike, is there any option?
There are some private organizations and individuals who can provide recovery homes. If you want state funds, you have to have a license to do it, and it becomes a little bit different situation. So, again, the state, that's not something that they invest a lot in.
Okay, let me go back to Chad and Tori. Did you have to pay for this, or was there insurance, or how did this work?
No, I actually live with people that I know personally from the recovery community. So it's not a business, or it's not operated by any organization or anything. It's just people that I know personally from the recovery community that were willing to open up their home to me to give me a better chance at recovery because they believe in me and they know that, you know, I'm an addict. I'm not an awful person. I have a disease and I need support and I need help and things of that nature. So I've been very blessed in my recovery, but not everybody gets these opportunities.
Thank you. Lisa, could you please join in the conversation? And stay standing, Chad, because Lisa is the mother of Chad. Can you share with us the family impact when he was on drugs and now that he's clean? How have things changed with the family?
It's changed 100%. When he started showing signs of addiction, and it took me a while to catch on, and as a mom, you kind of are in denial for a little bit, like this just can't really be happening, and suddenly you realize that this is what's happening, and suddenly things just began to fall apart overall in the whole family dynamic. I gave all my efforts because I was going to save him, I was going to fix him, and I was going to make him better. I think I probably became absent to most of the other family members, absorbing myself and trying to fix him, and I found that I was actually probably making it worse. I was probably doing things to enable him. I was unaware. So if I were to tell anyone today, you can't save him, but what you need to do is be proactive, and you need to get yourself a counselor. You need to learn about enabling and make sure you don't enable them. You need to go to Al-Anon. You need to read books, and you need to just become hyper aware of that painful thing of addiction.
And Chad, did you hide this from your mom, and how successful was he at hiding this?
I tried to hide it in every way that I could, just because I knew that if I let someone else in on my secret, that they would try to put a stop to it, and that was the last thing that I wanted. I feel like I was probably a lot less successful than I actually really was, because she's my mom, and she could just kind of like sense it and see it in my eyes.
What did you see, Lisa?
He just would doze off all the time, and he did. He had one eye that was always like half open, and I couldn't understand him. He would talk and he would slur his words, and I couldn't understand. And then, of course, then things began to disappear, and strange things would happen. People always was stealing stuff from him, and he would need it replaced, just things like that, and it just wasn't him. He just wasn't him.
Thank you. Dr. Bob Leiser, let's turn back to you. You're with Unity Point Health and with the Illinois Institute for Addiction Recovery. And you heard what they had to say in terms of he slept a little bit. What are some of the signs that people should look for that are indicators, maybe not guaranteed, but indicators that heroin is being used?
Well, I think patterns that are out of the normal for the individual, I think, is a big one of the indicators. As I said, the symptoms that you notice with the slurring of the words, the nodding that you do see with heroin users all the time is one of the classic signs also that we see. And distance themselves from friends, relationships, even family, something that is definitely off the path of their normal routine.
Let's turn to the topic of enabling. Brian Denur is with Advocate Medical Group. Enabling, how, and maybe Lisa, you might want to join in with this conversation, but how might a parent or a friend enable a user?
Well, there's several ways that happens. I think in the work that I've done with families, a big concern is they have a lot of fear, a lot of fear that something's going to happen to their loved one, an overdose, something like that. And so, there is that tendency to want to turn that blind eye and bail them out financially, replace the cell phone that got stolen, those kinds of things. And for a lot of family members, there's that concern that, well, if I don't do this, it's going to get worse, or he'll go or she'll go somewhere else, and then I won't be able to help them. So trying to really help educate families to understand the impact of that, and to understand that just prolongs things. So really highlighting that accountability.
Lisa,
Yes.
you're shaking your head yes. You learned the hard way you were enabling.
I was enabling. I realized that at the time what I was trying to do is everything that as a mother you want to nurture them and you want to fix them, you want to help them get better, and all of those steps was actually the process that was making things actually worse for him. And it's hard. Every time I would tell him goodbye, I knew in my mind it could be the last time I ever saw him again alive. And it's hard not to just want to keep them close. And then there was a time I had to say, you can't come back home anymore. You've stolen and you have to not come home. It's horrible.
But that's a tough question. And Joni, you said to your son, I don't want you in the house. You, of course, were able to have a positive outcome, but do you think about that? I kicked my son out of the house?
Oh, I have several sisters and parents still around, and boy, was I mean and rotten to him. I took it from everybody, but it was the thing to do. He had to scrounge for food. He had to get his friends he had absolutely no money for drugs. You know, the first time I kicked him out, I thought it was great because he came home and we had a great time for a while, but then he got back into it and I could tell exactly what he did. But yeah, it's hard. It just rips a piece of your heart out and stomps on it.
I want to thank both you, Joni, and you, Lisa, for being here and sharing your stories. It's very difficult.
It is.
We have another email. This is Ron Harkless, and he's wanting to know what is being done to get the heroin dealers off the street. It seems the monster is growing and getting worse. So we've been talking about treating users and the drug court and Patty court, et cetera, but how do you get the drug user off the street?
Well, through the Mayor's Coalition, we formed a task force. We have a lot of people working undercover, trying to talk to the people that overdose that we can talk to and get information. And we know where it's coming from, and we're working hard to stop it. And that's what we're doing in law enforcement.
Let me add a little something too. If you go into Patty court, which saves you years and years of prison because you've been involved in a drug conspiracy, and in a conspiracy, everyone is responsible for what everyone else did. One of the conditions, if you want treatment and you want essentially to come through well, is that you clearly state who you did what with. And the reason is because we use that information to work our way up to the sources. So I know law enforcement and prosecutors continually try to work their way up to the sources.
And I think to kind of answer what Ron's question is in terms of what are we doing? That's why we meet every Monday morning and go through the individuals. In other words, we're not just starting out. We know a group of individuals that are responsible for a large distribution of heroin. And so the law enforcement phase focuses on those individuals on a daily basis. And that's really not an exaggeration. They know who the individuals are, and they look at those individuals, they work those individuals. There are sources that come forward, and there are arrests made of those individuals as cases develop.
We talked earlier, Dr. Leiser, about Narcan, but we have that's a drug that just stops the effect for maybe up to 90 minutes of the opioid.
Correct.
But we haven't really talked about Suboxone and methadone. Now that's actually part of the treatment program?
Correct. And those are what we consider the medical assisted treatment programs that we use in detox centers, and we use in our center also when people present to our facility and are admitted with that.
Chrissy Smith, you help administrate that program? Mm-hmm. How effective is that? Is it different for each individual?
Sure. Well, all the research shows that medication-assisted treatment has 80% and higher success rates. And so we know with opioid dependence, we have better success with the medications, Suboxone, methadone, things like that.
I want anyone who wants to tackle this question, but we've talked about Bryce and Chad and Tori and how they were introduced. They eventually ended up with heroin. But is there a gateway drug that is most common? Or do you see it's just all different kinds of introductions to what ends up to be heroin use? Dr. Leiser.
As the stories that they have told tonight, we have definitely seen that prescription opioids, whether it's theirs, whether it's a family member's, where they bought it off the street, is one of the primary, I would say, gateways to the heroin use. I mean, I think the statistic is that half of the teenagers that use prescription opioids are eventually addicted to heroin. And that, as I would say, is the biggest area that we need to tackle these days.
You know, consistent with what Dr. Leiser said, in terms of the new users, one of the statistics has been that 70% of new heroin users have transitioned from prescription medication.
And quite often, they don't even have to buy the prescription medication. They find it at home or Skittle parties or what have you.
I think it's similar to what I think was Bryce who was mentioning that in his history, and I see that a lot in the practice that I have of adolescents who find it at home, get it through a relative, something like get it at school sometimes, things like that, and then older adults through injury. They have a chronic pain injury, they get hooked on the opiate. That becomes an addictive issue for them, and at times then transition into needing to find cheaper, needing to find more of it, and so they seek out heroin.
Dr. Leiser, painkillers in the 1980s or so, doctors were told, hey, opiates, they will kill pain. You won't feel pain. Probably a bad recommendation as we look back.
Correct. You know, hindsight's 20/20, and we now realize that. And that's, at least at Unity Point, what we're doing is attacking it from the physician standpoint of checking prescriptions and seeing people more frequently, urine drug screens, to make sure that these prescriptions are in fact being used and not left over after a surgery where a family member can pick them up.
State's Attorney, oh, go ahead.
I was going to mention that something that Pontiac Township High School started years ago was called P2D2. And a lot of us in the coalitions have adopted this as well, where we will go and pick up prescriptions for people with a police officer. Woodford County does that, or we will have, like, at our health department, we will pick a few dates throughout the year and have people bring them in. So if they have prescriptions that they are no longer using because they're no longer necessary, then we want them to clean out their medicine cabinets and bring them to those drop-offs. You can also drop off at, in Woodford County, you can drop off at the sheriff's, at the courthouse. You can also drop off at the Illinois State Police Department there in Germantown Hills.
And the Peoria Police Department as
Right.
well, in the lobby at the Peoria Police Station. Jerry Brady, I wanted to talk about doctor shopping. Now, there's a law against doctor shopping or in Illinois, or?
There is, but there's also a recognition now, and I think that's partially due to what the mayor created with the coalition. We brought a number of physicians together several months ago at the Jump Training Center, and we were very fortunate that we had good attendance. So I think in defense of some of the doctors, I think the doctors have become increasingly aware of what you talk about the 80s and where we've come from the 80s to where we are now. And there's an awareness of what now this prescription, like I said, the 70% transition from prescription medication. And I sense that, or at least at that forum, it was very clear that the doctors were becoming much more aware of this crisis.
We have one final email in. This comes from Sue Tisdale. Do you honestly think you can arrest your way out of the drug addiction epidemic? And we've addressed that, but we'll talk about it shortly. This is a disease, a health issue. All other health issues, diseases are addressed by special physicians. Addiction needs to be addressed the same. My son died February 8th, 2015 from opiate overdose in Canton after 13 years of addiction. Definitely need more addiction resources, treatment, and help for everyone. And I think several of you said you're never going to arrest your way out of this problem.
No, we can do our best to get to the sources and close off the sources, but then another source may come in behind it. But we can do what we can as enforcement. Similarly, someone explained that we probably can't treat our way through all of this. We can do substantial good through treatment, but we can't treat our way through it. We have to talk about a really well-organized prevention and community understanding program, which is what you're doing part of tonight. We have to get into the schools. We have to get into the medical community so that they understand it. An awful lot has to be done because, as the young people said, once you get into it, it's very hard. Think what you can do if we can prevent people from even going through the experience. So we really have to put a lot of effort in this community and every community. Prevention, 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 education.
And with that, we have run out of time. I'd like to thank all the members of the audience, especially Tori and Bryce and Chad, Lisa, Joni Shaver, for sharing those stories with us. Thank you to the Sheriff of Peoria County, Mike McCoy. The Mayor of Peoria is Jim Ardis. Chrissy Smith is here from the Human Service Center. Dr. Bob Leiser is here from Unity Point Health and the Illinois Institute for Addiction Recovery. The U.S. Attorney for the Central District of Illinois is Jim Lewis. Jerry Brady is here. He's the Peoria County State's Attorney. Tamara Childress is here from Chestnut Health Systems, and Brian Denur from Advocate Medical Group. Thank you all for being here. My name is H. Wayne Wilson. Take this to heart. It's your turn to take action.